Hello, everybody. What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of What Are You? Man, it's week 5. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe that. Um, Aja, how are you doing?
I'm tired. I'm mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausted. I have 3 exams this week. I just finished my first this morning, and I have 2 tomorrow. So, your girl is tired.
Tired.
I'm really tired. Okay. All right. What about you, Ray?
I'm doing pretty good, honestly. I'm keeping up with that self-care, which reminder, keep up with that self-care.
Same
um,
with you.
Super excited that sports are slowly coming back, but at the same time, I'm like cringing because there's so many things that can go wrong, especially in the NFL. But I'm super excited that the Denver Nuggets made it through the second round, beating what a lot of sports commentators, aka Skip Bayless, had mentioned was the best player in the NBA. To everyone who thought Kawhi Leonard was the best in the NBA, he's not. He choked. Get with it. And so yeah, that's just how I'm feeling. I'm feeling the vibe. I'm feeling the heat. You know what I mean? And I'm super excited slash panicking that we have to go against like the monolith that is LeBron James and the Lakers. I think they have like a really good cohesive team. And it's just going to be I think it's going to be a really good bout between the Denver Nuggets and the LA Lakers. So I'm really excited about that. Um,
Aren't
but
we
yeah,
also like the only team to make that record twice?
yes. And so normally, like in the playoffs, for anyone who hasn't known about NBA and stuff like that, the way that it goes is through the playoffs, you do 7 games, 7 game series. And so normally when the opposing team is up 3 and you've only won once, the next game, which would be the 5th game, would be like just to finish off and just win 4-1. No, the LA Clippers did not do that, to which everyone thought they would. And so Denver Nuggets started winning, so it was 3-2, and then they won, I think, Sunday, so they made it 3-3, pushing it to a game 7. And my goodness, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray put it down. Like, Aja, you don't understand like how bad it was for the LA Clippers. Like usually like people are like, oh, the LA Clippers, like they're not that bad. But with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, everyone thought it was going to be like a shutout game. Like everyone thought like this is it. This is the end of like the Denver Nuggets. And they thought that too with the Utah Jazz, but oh my goodness, like we're just a really good, cohesive, intelligent team that knows how to like analyze weaknesses and so so excited about all
Last
this.
bit of information I want to get out of you. What was the finishing score?
The finishing score, I believe it was like 104 to 89. Like by the end of like the last 2 minutes, we were up by 20 points.
That's
Aja.
good for us.
Like I was screaming. Like literally, I was like, what is going on? Ay Dios míos. I was hollering, dude. It was nuts. And I'm super excited. I'm so proud of the Denver Nuggets for doing it. And on their coach's birthday, too. Like, oh,
Alrighty, alrighty,
it's a
fanboy.
Disney story ready to happen. Um, but yes, for today's episode, we are talking about Latinx Heritage Month. Also, super shout out to Mexican Independence Day, which I believe it's today, as opposed to like yesterday. Yes, yesterday was the start of Latinx Heritage Month. Today is Mexican Independence Day. Super, super excited. All the things. So you might be asking yourself, like, I thought it was something else. Like, I don't know. Maybe it was Hispanic Heritage Month. And you'd be right for a little bit. But then we have a lot of things to change up. And that's why we changed it up to Latinx Heritage Month. So you might be asking, like, what are you using all these phrases for? And I don't know who's talking like that, but they're talking to me. So, so there are differences between Latin, Spanish, Hispanic,
Yeah.
which we can go into where that the term Hispanic it includes all the Latin American countries except for Brazil, but includes Spain. Latino is the Latin American countries that include Brazil, but not Spain. And then Latinx encompasses all those countries and the different variations of Spanish in which they speak of. And then Spanish is Spain's, like Spaniards, but all that. And so this is a really good, important time, especially for like a massive population within our community and within like, the CU Denver family, to celebrate the accomplishments of all our people, of all like, the people who've made accomplishments and everything like that. Whether it be famous people and stuff like that. But I will give a shout out to my mommy because I love her and she's famous and that's forever shall she be. But Aja, why don't you mention some of the acolytes of these individuals who've cemented themselves into history?
Absolutely. So, well, first of all Latinx countries celebrate the accomplishments of Latinx individuals. Specifically, there's been a lot of influence that the Latinx community has had on, what things have built the US to what it is today. Just saying. But artists, of course, Frida Kahlo, Diego Rivera are some that immediately come to mind, and especially what they did for art here in the US, specifically New York. That was huge. There's also musicians, so I want to say Celia Cruz, Mark Anthony, Selena Quintilla, sorry. I'm sorry, y'all. I apologize. Jennifer Lopez, Bad Bunny, who should have won Artist of the Year. I'm just saying, okay?
What do you mean?
Say again?
What do you mean?
Oh, so I won't get into it, but in an awards show, Maluma won over Bad Bunny, which I disagree with personally. I think it should have been Bad Bunny because Bad Bunny has done so much more as far as representation and actually discussing current issues and bringing light to the things that are destructive in the Latinx community, and especially to do with machismo. You always see him bending the rules of what the typical reggaeton artist would do. So I think that he should have won Artist of the Year and not Maluma, because Maluma sticks to heteronormative stuff. There was also that thing with his aunt. Not going to talk about that. But go ahead. What about sports? Because I'm not that good with sports. Please.
Yes. So I will say for sports, Sammy Sosa from the Cubs, Alex Rodriguez for the Yankees. I will not mention any of the players from the Houston Astros because they were cheating and they bought themselves a World Series title. So I will leave them out of it. Though I am very proud of the Latinx players who do play on that team. I'll leave it at that. We have Lionel Messi for Argentina, Cristiano Ronaldo, who's been like a really good prominent player for football in like Europe. And then the Bryant family, like definitely like, Kobe Bryant, like RIP. I can't believe it's like still the same year. But like definitely like he did leave a lasting, impression for the Latinx community, especially in LA. And his wife is also Mexican American as well. So like, or Mexican, yes. And so definitely like that, right then and there. He speaks Spanish as well. And so definitely like those are prominent like athletes. Although this is like the tip of the iceberg of the slew of like athletes that have like, cemented themselves in there. Social justice leaders like Sonia Sotomayor, Supreme Court Justice, Cesar Chavez, who definitely was a prominent civil rights activist for Mexican American rights. Julian Castro, who, bless his heart, him and his brother are working diligently in our government right now. Julian in particularly working in housing and urban development as security of housing and urban development. And he was the first Latinx candidate to open for campaign for the Democratic nominee, which, you know, side story, like that really got me like going, because like, you know, half of me was like really excited and the other half of me wanted to be petty and be like, I would love to have a Latinx president just so I can throw salt on the previous administration. But, you know, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. We still have a lot of prominent like individuals who are working in our government, and hopefully we can have more, along with, you know, how am I forgetting this? AOC, Alexandria
Yes.
Ocasio-Cortez. You know, she's knocking it out, repping it.
Love her so
Repping,
much.
yeah. And repping like New York too.
Hmm.
Like you're, you know what I mean? Super excited. For actors, you know, there's again small iceberg, but like there's so many, there's a slew of them. Sofia Vergara, Eva Longoria. For comics slash actors, we have like, you know, George Lopez, Gabriel Iglesias, like, you know, Fluffy, you know what I mean? And then Javier Bardem, like he is such like he's like a sleeper actor. Like a lot of people just sleep on him and then they realize like how good he is as an individual. And I'm like, oh my God, like he's haunting when he can be haunting, and then he's so humble when he can be humble. It's insane. And side note, sorry, I'm like going off of Javier Bardem, but like the first movie that I saw him in was in the Love and Time and Cholera, which was an amazing like movie that he was in, and I didn't like realize it was him until way later on when I saw him in Old Country for No Men. But I was like, oh wow, like I remember him. He was like so young, and like I think he was, honestly, I feel like that was one of his first movies, Love in the Time of Cholera, and oh my gosh, like he. If you guys haven't read that book, like please read it, and if you guys haven't seen that movie, please like watch it, but don't watch it with your family because it's not family friendly. It's a very like mature film. And it's like just really good, and it's like all in Spanish, and it's like so good. I love it. But you know, with with all good things there is bad, and so I just wanted to address these things, you know, definitely
Again,
because like
the
as much as,
iceberg.
huh,
I said again, a tip of the iceberg.
yes, again, a tip of the iceberg, and these are meant to be out in the open so that we can talk about them, and so we can, you know, figure out the inner complexities of being Latinx in the United States, or the problems that, you know, some Latinx countries have brought into the first generation family that are still, you know, stationary today. So definitely the first one for me specifically is machismo, and like the gender roles that are placed upon children slash like males and females. Um, Definitely there's so much for machismo, like we can, that can be its own episode, honestly. And particularly just like the conversation of like what a guy should do and how he should act and how he should behave, and like just all the mannerisms behind that, like, you know, kind of be like a bad guy, well, not a bad guy, but like kind of be like a tough guy, like tough exterior, never revealing his feelings, just being like, you know, like hard, you know what I'm saying? Which like makes sense because like the work ethic and like, you know, definitely like shows that, like you're just being like, all right, cool, let's knock out this like, you know, week of double shifts and doing this and that, and like definitely that is the good component of it, but the bad component is like not revealing your feelings, which has been like an issue for Latinx men. And then gender roles and power dynamics are just like, ugh, just because like, you know, for families, like they definitely have, specifically for my family in general, my mom was definitely like one of those people who were like, when am I getting children, hijo? And I'm like, Mom, I'm 12. Like, can I just play Crash Bandicoot, please? Like, I just want to play Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and do all of the stupid stuff. And she's like, pero, like, you know, she'd always like just be really excited when I would like talk to a girl, or when I would like have a friend who was a girl. She's like, oh wow. But then like on the opposite end, like my mom didn't want my sister to have children ever, and or if she did have children, she'd want to kick her out. And so like there's so many like child power dynamics. I was like, why am I not getting in trouble for staying up late? But she's literally coming late from work and she's getting in trouble. And so like it's just that whole bit. Definitely La Chancla, which, if this doesn't send a shiver down your spine, like I don't know how pleasantly you lived your childhood. But if anyone remembers La Chancla, it was like basically like a slipper that like your mom would hit you with if you did anything bad. Um, which brings up the conversation of child rearing and child discipline. Because back in the 90s slash like the early 2000s, like La Chancla wasn't a thing, or wasn't a discussion when it came to like corporal punishment. And now it's like, all right, you can't do that to your kid just because like they drop something or like they do something silly or something like that. And so like that conversation's getting brought to light, which is really good. Just because like there's always that conversation of like, yo, yeah, like, well, I'm just like teaching my child to respect things. It's like, yeah, we understand, but they shouldn't, do that like when they see a slipper or when they like hear their mother like raise their voice and something like that. It's definitely one of those conversations that is still kind of heavy slash like hard to take, but it's necessary to bring it out as well.
Because
Also,
it's been
yeah.
normalized, So when there's a normalization of it, it becomes acceptable in the community. And now trying to come to terms with being like, oh, wow, okay, I suffered a lot of abuse as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know that was a thing. So coming to terms with that and then wanting to go into therapy, and then Latinx families are like, therapy? What therapy? You just need Jesus.
Yeah. For sure. No, definitely. Like, I think that's that's a big old thing. But yeah, no, definitely just that whole thing, and which goes into my next point of family boundaries, of how there is the sandwiching of the newer generation, the parents, and then the extended family and or the previous generation all living in one house, and the two generations kind of arguing with the current generation of staying in the house. This was definitely a problem for me for sure, just because like my mom wanted me to stay in the house like until I was like 35, and then like go out of the house with my children and stuff like that. And I'm like, Mom, let's get to A to B, okay? How am I going to be 35 living with my mother to getting married with children? There is no way I can get to there, like still living in this house. And she's like, no, you totally can. I was like, how? Tell me how. And I think like me discussing that with her definitely brought like a really big conversation of like how to be independent and how to help out the family and like this and that and third. And at times it can become toxic, and it's super like it's like a sticky situation because you never want like you again like the whole normalization conversation where like for 20x years you've been taught to respect your parents no matter what and help out the family no matter what and do this no matter what. And how are you supposed to go off to college and explore your identity and like learn more and help yourself grow and do all this while still being at home? So mommy, I love you. I just want to say that. Like that's just but that's such a hard conversation to have. And like sometimes like all the families just get like bogged down slash like a lot of it like can be hard to find that privacy space and to have that opportunity to be independent. So it's like that kind of hard conversation. So yeah. The next thing that I had was what it takes to be Latinx and the Latin card. I think the most common one is like, can you speak Spanish correctly?
Yes.
Not even can you speak Spanish. Like everyone could take classes on Rosetta Stone in our wonderful classes that we have here at CU Denver. But there's a difference between like taking class Spanish and like knowing fluent Spanish.
Yeah.
And I think like, you can go to like a taqueria and stuff like that. And if you don't say something right, they'll be like, I'll give you the horchata. And I'm like, no, like, no, please. Like, and you lose the card, like you mentally lose that card. And you like, feel so much like shame and stuff like that. Even now, like you messed up Selena Quintanilla's name, but
Yeah,
you like apologize. But like you didn't need to apologize for nothing, you know? It I feel like it's cemented in our minds of like,
absolutely. Because there's
yeah.
always that, well, in my experience, so I come from mixed background, obviously, but one side of my family is African American, the other side is Mexicano. And whenever whenever I'm interacting with my Mexicano side of the family, there's this kind of whitewashing that's been engraved through my abuela because she and her husband wanted their children to have white names and marry white partners and have, you know, white children, and to kind of assimilate how they deemed appropriate into the US.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, they didn't teach their kids Spanish at all. And then that carried on through my dad, where he, didn't speak Spanish. He's trying to learn it now. Um, but I would always get asked, oh, are you really Mexican? Like, how Mexican are you? That where you need to be put on a scale of, okay, you're all right to hang out with the homegirls, but you can't do this with us. Or you don't speak Spanish fluently, so you can't come around here. Or you
Yeah.
can't talk to these certain people.
Yeah. I think at a certain time, most, if not all of us, have gotten like, how Latinx are you? And you're like, I don't know. I'm like, what? Because I have gotten the question of like, oh, can you speak fluently? And like, I always tell people, I can speak fluently to my mother, and that's it. And that's it. And like, literally, people are like, wait, what? What the fuck? What do you mean by that? And I was like, well, I can speak fluently to my mother and no one else. Like literally, it's honestly like a flip of the switch where I can like talk fluently to my mother, and then everyone's like, "Oh, so you are fluent?" And I'm like, "What?" Like, and like I'll speak with them, and they're like, "How did you mess up that word when you just said it perfectly to your mother?" I was like, "This is what I mean because I can speak fluently to only my mother. Like that is it. Like everyone else, like I can do like conversation with, but there are some words that like are just they just didn't stick in my mind. But when I talk to my mother, it's like perfect. And like I don't know, I feel like this is like giving too much, but like there was one time where like when I was talking to my mother, some person like overheard our conversation and she's like, "Oh, your Spanish is funny." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Oh, well, you chop up some of your words." I was like, I literally like got a visceral like anger from that person. I was like, "Are you get out of my face? Like I don't need to do it. I don't need to prove you nothing. I talked to my mom and I love her. You don't." Like it literally like set me off. But like that like I don't like when people like criticize me talking to my mom. You can criticize my Spanish, I don't really care. But like if it's criticizing my Spanish with my mother, that's when I like draw the line. I don't know why. It did. That's just like the thing.
I've
um
never met someone who has the particular Spanish that you do.
yeah,
When we speak with your mother.
it's a gift. But yeah, the last part that I was going to mention was just like homophobia, which like is such a prominent like issue in the Latinx community. It's getting better now, 100%. And I think honestly, like Ricky Martin was like a good push for the betterment for Latinx LGBTQ allyship.
Mhm.
Just because like I think when he came out, my mom kind of like got the light bulb idea of like, oh man, like wow, he's like really happy like being the way he is. And I was like, oh, like
Here goes my
mom,
kid.
yeah, no, like I was like, Mom, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I just can't marry him. She's like so mad about it. and like I was like, oh, like I thought I was gonna have to have a hard conversation of her like thinking like, oh, like this is just a phase for him. No, she knew exactly like what was going on.
Wow.
Immediately was like mad at that like she couldn't marry him. And she was like happy that he was like living his life. And then she was like, I wish I was a guy. I was like, Mom. like, please. She loved Ricky Martin, by the way, like loved him. So,
Obviously. I
but yeah,
mean,
no, go ahead.
I can speak to that too because I'm part of the LGBTQIA plus community myself. So coming out to my Mexicano side of the family, especially my abuela, she was very like, what? You don't only like men? What's wrong with you? And I had the balls to come out to her in like middle school, I want to say, which I know. Going to high school in Boulder will change some shit for you.
Oh my goodness.
But she, whenever I see her now, she always asks me, "Oh, when are you gonna get married? Have you found a husband? When are you gonna have children?" And even when I was a kid, she was like, "Do you want to get married when you're older?" I told her, "No, I don't want to get married." And she was like, "You have to get married. You won't be able to have children." Like, I don't want to get married. I don't want to have children.
It's like, abuelita, how should I explain this? You do know you can have children. And that's like another hurdle.
Adopt if I wanted to, but I had to tell her straight up, Abuela, you might not get a husband. You might not get a wife. You might not get anything.
Oh, don't don't cause that heartbreak. Oh
No,
my goodness.
she's still coming to terms with it, but she gives me less shit every time I see her.
But it's good that we like bring out these like issues and stuff like that, just so that like we know like the good and what to kind of reduce in the bad. Like hopefully in the future we can definitely reduce these things and like be fully proud of what's going on and at least be aware of like the bad things that are going on. So this is like the big question of like why are we having this discussion and like why are we like talking about this in the CU Denver universe?
The acknowledgement and recognition of the important advances that have been made through those who are involved in the Latinx community. Honestly, being able to have a month to claim is like, yes, my people did this. No, we built these foundations. Oh, I'm sorry, you just colonized? Okay. All right.
Dang. Yeah, no. But yeah, no, definitely. I think it's like super important to do that, and I always feel bad just because like I always like, I think the first time that I like understood, when it was like Hispanic Heritage Month, back when I was like middle school, sorry, LatinX, it was like, yeah. But it was on like the 15th. And so I had to break it to like the whole month into September and October. And a lot of my friends didn't understand what was going on. And they thought like, they kept messing it up. They were either like thinking that it was all in October, all in September, and not like in between. And I was like, no, it's like the 15th to the 15th, my friend. Like that's where we're going. And they're like, but that's just 2 full months. It's like, if it's one, it's like, I had to do math for them. I was like, ugh. But like, they're like, so what is this about? Like, I thought it was Cinco de Mayo again. It's like, it's not Cinco de Mayo, and like, look, this is the more important thing is to help understand for those who don't understand what the importance of this time means.
Absolutely.
Of, all the Latinx countries, of, all the accomplishments that the past, present, and future will accomplish, or have accomplished, and the certain resources that CU Denver provides, such as LSA, CII, MBSA, so that you can like
There's
explore.
also Latinx student services.
Yes, Latinx student services.
And
Definitely.
LSS is doing a lot of events for Latinx Heritage Month. They're actually going to do a storytelling of La Llorona, and then they're going to show the movie later that day. Right? I was like, ooh, I want to do that. I want to do that. Okay.
I will say, like, the story of La Llorona, like, that's like a really good like story. The movie, it's really like, it's like one of those horror movies that you like watch and you're like, because there's the main characters are not of the Latinx.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's a whole like look it up. But like
Wow.
the whole story goes into like the whole timeline of everything. But like you know, it's one of those movies where like when you like screaming at the screen and you're like, why did you do this? What are you doing? It's kind of like that, but it's even better because like all the Latinx like people who watch the movie with me, like in the audience, they're like, you know what? She should get you. Like you're done messed up.
I've never watched a horror movie, so we'll see how this goes. If
Oh,
I'm
it's terrific. Like definitely like it's one that you're gonna be like, all right, cool. All I gotta do is clean my room and you good? I'm good. All right, cool. And that's it. You know what I mean? But definitely, yeah, like I'm really excited for these events and to participate and you know what to
There's also barbershop conversations. It's a group of young men who get together to have facilitated discussions about masculinity within the Latinx community. There's also, they made the female version too. So definitely check out those. Sorry, totally had a brain fart.
no, that's fine.
But I mean, as far as next week,
Yes,
you
next
have
episode.
colorism, talking about benefits, drawbacks, how it's, kept on in our respective communities and how we see that reflection every single day when we interact with other people.
Yes.
Yes, definitely tune into that one. It also ties into everything we've been talking about so far.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's you said everything, so like I was like good to go. But yeah, no, that concludes another episode of
What are you? We'll get it one day.